is booked, because The View starts now.
We are going to rock the world in the next 2 years.
Primary shakeup. With Romney's rising on the right and shocking upsets on the left, is the Democratic Party in shambles or rebuilding for the next generation? Late night collusion.
Hey, Lil Ev. Hey, Lost Soul.
How Colbert, Fallon, and Conan joined forces after they were slammed by the president.
If we're not careful, this thing could start to get ugly.
Then, Time's Up co-founder and actress Amber Tamblyn on how she's putting the movement in a shocking new perspective. Let's light up Hot Topics with Whoopi, Sarah Haynes, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Meghan McCain. Now, let's get things started.
Some pretty big surprises and shakeups in yesterday's primaries. Mitt Romney won huge in Utah, and Democratic Congressman Joseph Crowley, who was expected to replace House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, was upset by former Bernie Sanders campaign organizer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So what do you think? What do you think? Because I think things are happening in all the parties. Motion is happening.
You know, just before we talk about that, Crowley did something really nice in his concession, I just found out. He conceded and immediately endorsed her before picking up his guitar and dedicating the song Born to Run to her. Yeah. So in this miserable time that we're in where people are attacking each other, these two Democrats are getting along even though he lost. Isn't that
right? Yeah, what I like most about that particular outcome was he outspent her 18-1, and I think I'm always, I hate watching campaigns in the intermix of money. You know, when you look at PACs, when you look at lobbyists, it feels like money's always wrapped up in this. To see someone that did a grassroots thing where most of her donations were under $200, like a Bernie Sanders, it gave me hope that you don't have to have all the power already or the money. You can actually win these things. Like,
well, she really spoke to the people. I'd heard about her. I mean, she's Puerto Rican and she's from the Bronx, as am I. And I do a lot of work in the Bronx, and there was this sort of groundswell. People kept on mentioning her name to me, and she reached out to the people. Her platform was very progressive, but what I think I'm seeing, if I'm reading the tea leaves about this, is there seems to be a succession plan for the Democratic Party. You know, there are people, younger people coming in, fresher people, innovative ideas, and I think the communities are really grasping that energy, and they're going out and they're voting.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting aspects of this race. First and foremost, she considers herself a socialist. So she's a Bernie Sanders Democrat. She's not a traditional, whatever, Clinton Democrat. And I will say this fracture within the Democratic Party is only going to get more intense as we get closer to the midterms and then the general. And there's going to be a lot of reconciling for the soul of the party. She came out and said she refused to back Nancy Pelosi. There's going to be a lot of people in leadership positions that don't like it. I will say that Crowley was the #4 Democrat in the House. He's a very powerful Democrat. The fact that he was primaried by her, it's much like Eric Cantor. You have to go home and you have to campaign in your home state. You have to stay local. And it's obvious that he didn't do that, as you noted, how much he was outspent in the race. I still am, much like you, Whoopi, I'm hesitant to say that this is the second coming. This is exactly what it's going to be. She's not actually in Congress yet, although more than likely in this race she will be. And I'm just more fascinated by what's going to happen between, is the Democratic Party the future of socialism, or is it the future of traditional Democrats?
Take the word socialism out of it.
She considers herself a socialist.
She calls herself, as does Bernie.
Does anybody understand really what that means?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, a lot
She
of
wants to
folks
get Medicare for everybody. She wants to get rid of ICE. Okay, she wants education.
Getting rid of
for
ICE
people.
is a highly
That's
controversial
socialism?
platform.
Swinging very liberal. There was a time where it was moderate on both sides when you saw.
You know why? You know why I
politicians
think? Because on the Democratic side, we are just as angry at the old guard for sitting by and letting Mitch McConnell change the whole country into the Mitch McConnell country by putting in Gorsuch against the rules of 230 years in this country.
Do you remember
We're
how much...
furious with them for doing that, and now the comeuppance is here.
But the political, if you want to read tea leaves into the future, Bernie hurt Hillary a lot. He damaged her with young people. He damaged her with women. And the possibility of this happening again and history repeating itself in the general, we had John Meacham on yesterday saying more than likely Trump's going to get reelected. If Democrats want to learn anything, don't fracture your party this way. I don't know why I'm giving you free advice.
All of the
I don't think the Democrats are
parties
fractured.
are fractured. Well, there is a fracture, and it is happening. But I don't listen. I think this has a lot of things going for it. This is a young woman, a young Latina, and she's in Queens. And they're kind of folks are saying, you know what? We should get some faces maybe look a little bit more like us. I think there's lots of stuff happening, lots of great stuff happening, and you know, I believe that you need young guard and old guard. You need the blend of both because neither can do everything.
Can I just add this, because Bakari Sellers, he's the former South Carolina rep, and he's a friend of mine.
He's great.
He's great.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to him about this alleged Democratic fracture, and he says that is not true. He says there's no pronounced ideological split in the Democratic Party. He says it's a healthy generational shift. He says to our very core, meaning Democrats, we all believe in caring for the poor, immigration, education, and health care. That's what our votes are about. There is no fracture.
Well, let me tell you what part of the fracture is. Is you remember several months ago there was an outcry that all of the folks who were basically over 12 should get out and get out of the way.
Versus, for the possible backlash of a Trump presidency with people going a little more to the other extreme, there's also a belief that you don't even have to be a reality star to run. You can just be an American and go run for office. But that's what she did.
But is it an ideological shift?
Yes, the difference between socialism and classic Democrats, the difference between Bernie Sanders and most of the party is vast and wide. I don't do many things well.
This is a little different now. The party is united against Trump.
She has
Can I say one more thing about Nancy Pelosi? Nancy Pelosi is not going around telling people you better be on my team the way Trump is doing it, intimidating.
But there could be backlash
around the country. Did you watch the DNC convention and the big split? Did you watch Bernie Sanders' face when it was happening? He damaged her. He hurt her.
That was a while ago. That was before Trump was elected.
Listen, again, I don't do many things right. I've been doing politics my entire life. My mom was pregnant with me at the Reagan convention. I'm telling you, there's a fracture in the Democratic Party. And again, if you guys want to shoot yourselves in the foot, by all means. But I think there's something about the Democratic Party.
Somehow I don't feel you're helping us. I don't know why.
I don't think anybody's trying to shoot. I don't think anybody's trying to shoot in the foot. But we have to recognize there is an issue. Yeah. There is an issue. But I have to say, look, I get really irritated because for me, Bernie was a really interesting candidate who couldn't get stuff done. For me. That's for me. I lived in Vermont. So I like a lot of ideas, but I want somebody who can actually get stuff done. So I feel like, okay, if we're going to meld the parties, I'd like to be aware of it. I'd like to know that we are. For me, it's different.
But to me, it's like it's got to be a tsunami of blue vote in November between Russian collusion, which is not being addressed, gerrymandering just being ignored by the Supreme Court, which benefits most Republicans.
Where are you? Because I'm talking about something totally different.
Well, I'm on the same.
I'm not following this either.
Why? I'm talking about what has to be done.
She's talking about what has to be done.
Right, but is that you may be following it, but is it off of the fact that we are trying to meld the party between socialism
well, I'm
and
saying that
Democrats?
no matter whether there's a schism or not a schism, you've got to have a big turnout, is what I'm saying, because there's so much opposition and so much thievery going on the other side.
Can I say one thing, though? And you've conceded this to me. Republicans band together. We're very tribal. Like, even at the end of the day, that's why so many Republicans still support Trump, despite all the things he's done to the party. Democrats are not so good at this. That's why there continues to be a split. It's why people like Elizabeth Warren refuse to endorse Clinton.
We don't like certain things in the party.
If there's a bottom line about 2020, which I think there is for you in particular, and we've discussed that many times, your party's got to figure out if it's a party of socialism or it's the party of plastic.
That's what I'm saying. Because it is, but if people feel like they don't understand someone who says they're a socialist, they say, well, somebody else will handle it. That's why everyone has to understand what this means. What it means and what does the Democratic Party stand for. Also, not to knock Republicans, but I have to say they seem to allow certain things. They seem to allow lies, and they seem to be okay with people, trashing your dad. Like there's certain things that no one should be okay with, and they seem to be.
His approval ratings are higher than they were.
Yes.
From Republicans. I mean, no matter what he does, no matter what he says, they still back him up. It's absolutely galling.
But only 20% of the voters are Republican, right?
And so that's why I'm saying we need a tsunami.
And so I think when you put it into context, perhaps 27% of the voting public is voting for Trump, is going to vote Republican. But what about the other people in the United States of America?
They're being screwed.
Yeah, and I think that's where the real opportunity lies.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
Still ahead, Late Night Unite. How the hosts of Late Night are networking to respond to the president's attacks. Get your daily dose of girl power.
I dream big, and when you dream big, you have to be fearless in your dream.
That's right.
Talking about sisterhood, the importance of women supporting other women, which is something you guys get. Thank you for being such an inspiration to me.
That's right. We're serving up you strong all day long. We're The View on ABC. Actress Amber Tamblyn on how she's flipping the script on the Time's Up movement.
Welcome back. So the latest politician to be confronted in public is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who was called out by immigration policy protesters while leaving an event at Georgetown University. His wife, Transportation Secretary Lane Cho, wasn't happy about it. Take a look.
Why are you separating families? Why did you leave my husband alone? Why are you separating families? Why did you leave my husband alone?
Is it a good tactic or a bad tactic?
Can I just point out that Mitch McConnell himself was in the car? It's like, man up, Mitch, okay? Don't leave your wife out there to handle this.
Listen, I don't know if it's a tactic that's working or not working, but it certainly is not illegal. It is certainly their constitutional right. We're talking about the Senate Majority Leader and a member of the Cabinet, Transportation Secretary. I don't understand why people feel that public officials, public servants, can't be asked about their service. It seemed to me
That's
I didn't think they were that close. And in fact, when I looked at it, what they were saying, what they did was they approached and they were playing the sounds of the children that were crying for their parents. So this is very much about the children that are being separated because of this administration's policies. And let's remember that Mitch McConnell said that this needed a legislative fix. That was a lie. It didn't need a legislative fix. It just needed a phone call to Jeff Sessions.
That's right.
And so I think, we need to
But Sonny, I don't disagree. When you said the part about public officials being heard, I think protest and speaking up is one of the most American things we have. It's protected in the Constitution.
I don't think they were overly aggressive.
But in this day and age, the part that scares me, and this is what the producer Carly and I were going 2 years ago, that seems like the beginning of a protest. In the day where politicians are putting things out there that say crowd around, be heard, I don't trust heat on heat. That's an explosion. If one side is doing it, I'm not saying give them the other cheek and take the high road. I'm saying if you want strategy to win, this is not going to end well. We are dealing in a time where passion, it's driving a car, will shoot each other. You get politics involved in personal emotions and you tell people to crowd around, people are going to die.
And it works both ways.
First of all, she is a Taiwanese immigrant, Elaine Chao, which in any other world would be celebrated, that a woman who came up the ranks to be the Secretary of Transportation. She is being physically intimidated by a group of men. I have been on the other side of this. Let me trust you. You can make faces all you want. It's serious.
I thought she was more aggressive than they were.
Gabby Giffords comes from my home state. She was shot. Steve Scalise was also shot. I agree with you that it's the amping up, and we are going to see something happen. And we are going to see something happen at some point.
Yeah.
If it continues like this, I'm 100% against it. I agree that it's not the way to do it.
What's the suggestion for protesting these people who are killing this country?
And who are hiding in their cars.
Continue to protest. What I would have done, what I would have done differently, the only thing I would have done is I would have stood 10 feet back. That's the only difference. Physically give them no excuse to say you're imposing anything and scream louder. That's what I would have done.
What's happening is I just don't want to go out anymore. Like that's part of it, is like I just am much less social. And I think you are as well. I mean, I ran into your husband this morning.
My husband?
Your husband, yes.
Did he hurt
I ran into each other. But
he's always walking.
He's
always walking the dog in front of the building.
You know what? Megan has no age issues.
Steve is Steve is like my buddy now. We have nice chats. But he was saying that you had been, someone had yelled at you once again on the street. The amping up. But I wanted to share a story because everything has been so negative and so awful. So I was thinking about, I need a story of bipartisanship that's really nice to bring to the show today. So after I got married, I came home and I had a personal handwritten letter from President Obama congratulating me on getting married, talking about love, talking about his love with Michelle. It is beautiful. I have it framed. I once said that this is a man who nuclearized the Middle East. We were great adversaries, my father and his father, fighting throughout the election, his father, fighting throughout the election. It was very ugly and very...
Your father and him.
Yes, father and him, excuse me.
Right.
And if you can come to a place where you congratulate your adversary's daughter for getting married, but I'm just saying, it's also
But remember, think back. It used to be Tip O'Neill. I mean, look, I get that folks wanted stuff, they wanted a change. I doubt that the extreme people were thinking about. This is not the America I grew up in, because when Lady Liberty is standing in that harbor and saying, give me your people who need us, who want to be part of us. America has always, with all of her downsides, she has always been a beacon of hope for people. And the idea that we are now, and I'm not bullying you, BSing you, we are not the most respected. No. We are not a country that people are saying, hey, I don't know if we want to go there for sanctuary. I don't know if that's a safe place. When America is not a safe place for people who built America, which is all of our families, we're all immigrants, that's not a good thing. So we got to make a shift.
The tone came from the top.
Well, yeah, the tone came from the top, but we've spread it out. We've spread the tone. Part of this is our fault because we accepted. And this is what you get when you accept a lesser idea of America. We'll be right back. Taking some pot shots at the host of late night shows lately, and last night they joined forces to respond to him. Take a look.
Hey, lowlife. Hey, lost soul. Did you see Trump's rally last night? Nope. Me either. Heard he said some pretty bad stuff about us.
Really? That doesn't sound like him.
I heard he said we're all no talent, low life, lost souls.
Well, that's not right. That's Conan. Hold on, I'll get him.
Oh, hey, Hey, guys, what's up?
We just want to know what President Trump said last night. President who?
Trump.
Donald Trump. The real estate guy who sells steaks? He's president?
Yeah. Hey, you still on for lunch?
Yeah. What do you want to eat?
Red hen?
Red hen.
This is one battle he's going to lose, because when it comes to the battle of the wits, he is unarmed. So be careful what you do with comedians.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, don't fight with a comedian. For real. It's the first way to look like
And
a
they're
jerk.
a whole cabal over there.
Yeah.
You haven't even heard from Kimmel yet.
I was waiting for it.
Well, it's all about disarming people with humor.
Yeah,
Right?
But he doesn't like that, and he always says you have no talent when you're a performer.
I wish he'd get
That's
some
his
other
favorite.
things to
Yeah.
say about
Nah,
folks.
but what can he
How
say?
many times have we been without talent?
Yeah,
so many times.
He put it in one of his books that I have no talent.
Yes.
He's so impressed with my intermittent non-talent.
I know. I know.
But I love that they had a sense of humor about it. Like
Yeah. Well, that's what they do.
it's what Ricky Gervais said here on the show. He said, humor is my bulletproof vest.
Yes.
And like in these times with every rhetoric, you can always win when you can laugh.
Yeah, you can, but let us not forget, okay, that sometimes we are very sharp. We can be very sharp. And part of being president of the United States means you have to grow some skin. So, you know, people are going to have some fun. You are a walking humor fest for comics. It's just what it is. And that's, you know, that's what it
The other
is.
thing about him is, like, the boy. Children can't find their parents. Parents can't find their children. Jobs are leaving the country. Harley Davidson is in uproar. Read about it.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court is being overrun by Neil Gorsuch. And this guy's worried about Colbert and Conan O'Brien. It's like, would you do your job?
Easily distracted.
So, speaking of folks maybe not doing quite the job you think they should be doing, you know, rapper Meek Mill was here a few weeks ago to talk about trying to get a new trial on drug and gun charges. And his bid, again, was denied. Now, his attorney repeatedly asked that the presiding judge be taken off the case because of conflicts of interest and bias. So why isn't anybody listening? I mean, this, you know, there's no proof that he was the person they were looking for. Number one, let's just start with that. And the guys that arrested him have now sort of been taken to task for all of these false arrests, and they've been disbanded. And so why isn't she? What's happening with her?
Legally, what can they do, though? Sorry, to build off what Whoopi said, they said when they were here that this judge shows a curious interest in his case and keeps slapping him back down.
Yes.
What can you do when a judge seems to be abusing their power?
Well, you can move to have the judge removed from the case, which they have already done. And it was a pretty close decision. I think it was 3-2, where the judges said, no, she hasn't shown this bias and she can remain on the case. My assumption is that they're going to take this ruling, which was absurd that he didn't get a new trial, because so many, even the DA thought he should get a new trial.
They put it in writing. This guy a new trial.
I think they're going to go back to the Supreme Court, and they should. Not the U.S. Supremes, but the Pennsylvania, I think. Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And they'll ask again. They need to have this judge removed from the case.
Yeah, or
She's
somebody
acting in a way I've
needs to
never
figure
seen.
out what the motivation is here, because A, you're not even sure he's the person.
Yes.
You're not sure. He was beat within an inch of his life,
his
and you
mugshot, you could see
see in the mugshot. You're not sure that he's the person that the police arrested him.
Yeah.
And then he goes in front of this judge, and this judge sort of, you know.
And the testifying officers have been found to be liars.
Liars.
And other sentences by other judges have been overturned because of this police officer.
Because of this police. So, Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, please, please, please. It is hard enough when you're guilty to get somebody to listen. But when you're innocent, this kid is not the kid that should have been arrested. Y'all need to do something, because clearly she's not listening. Okay? All right. We'll be back. little speed round. The first thing in the speed round is putting the kids to bed can be tricky, apparently, for parents. And one dad wrote into the Washington Post advice column because his wife is mad at their kids want to hang out with him, you know, and be put to bed by him and not her. Would this bother you?
My son prefers my husband, which they promised me if I had a little boy, he would love me. But I play better, so I brought a little picture of what Mama does better.
Let's see.
Yep, I set up tunnels, garages, and a full car parade.
And still he wants to sleep with his dad. What about you?
Well, all I can talk about is my grandson, who now that we're playing Heads Up likes me.
Oh, I love Heads Up.
But when he was playing Legos and boy things, whatever those were, I don't know what those were. Not Legos.
That was a boy thing, and I rocked
some other thing that boys do. I don't know what they do.
But he liked.
Now he likes me because it's a word game. I'm good at that.
Okay, what about you?
My kids have always kind of preferred me, but now that my son is getting older, he talks to his dad about things.
Yeah.
That's
and
correct.
Did you have, were you more close, were you preferable for one or the other?
My mom calls me John McCain in a dress. You can probably intuit that. Like, he was in D.C. during the weekend. We'd come home on the weekend, and we would come to the airport and just go absolutely ape blank and scream and make signs. And yes, I loved. I love my mother too, but you know. Still.
Yeah.
And you?
I have no idea. I never cared. How about this? So here's this. SNL's Pete Davidson recently covered up a tattoo of his ex-girlfriend and wanted to get a new one to celebrate his new relationship with Ariana Grande. But his tattoo artist advised him to wait until he's actually married to her. But he didn't listen. Can anyone at the table relate to anything like this? No!
Spring Break 07, sorry guys, was my then boyfriend.
Right.
Yeah, we got tattoos together, and we're not together. It's not the man I married. And I will want to say, stop tattoo shaming. They're markers in your life. If you want to brand something on you, it's because something significant happened to you, and you want to be reminded on your body. And I think that's the place he was in. Give him a break.
But if you're a player...
What's your husband's name again? Ben? Does Ben want to be reminded? I forgot. For a second, I'm old. Does Ben want to be reminded?
I know your husband's name, Joy, very well.
I was thinking of Pete Dominique, the comedian.
Oh, yes.
My husband's name Ben Dominish. I don't know what you're
that's probably why.
Anyway, does he enjoy seeing these tattoos about a previous
He's very cool about everything.
Yeah.
Thank
You're
God.
like a
I wouldn't have
history
married
book
him.
of ink.
It's just
Chapter 1.
You have a tattoo?
No, I don't.
No, she doesn't have any tattoos.
Never.
I got
What about
tattoos.
you?
I'm
What
scared
was
of
that
needles.
about?
What?
The tattoo.
I got tattoos. I don't have it.
You
Listen,
have a bunch of tattoos.
I have a
somebody's
bunch
name.
of tattoos. I've never put another person's on my body because who knows where they're going to be when I'm over here.
Well, that's right. But
So and that's just the way it is. But, to each his own. Do your thing. Be your person. We'll be back.
Actress Amber Tamblyn co-founded the Time's Up movement, but she's about to change your entire perspective on the fight against sexual violence. Next. For what you believe.
We definitely have things to stand up against in this country right now.
It means women standing up together.
There's women who are standing up and saying, no, me too, and I'm going to watch out for my sisters on set.
It sets an example for any other abuser that their time is up. We're not done yet.
Oh, you know. It means telling it like it is.
Sorry to puncture your heroes, but sometimes these heroes need to be better. You are so brave. This is about how to be brave in the face of adversity.
Strong.
We will back you up. We will stand with you.
And we're only getting stronger. The View on ABC.
Tonight and tomorrow, this parent...
Before there was Me Too, before she co-founded the Time's Up movement, actress Amber Tamblyn was a trailblazing force to stop sexual violence, and her new book, Any Man, looks at it from a whole new perspective. Please welcome Amber Tamblyn. Hey, Amber. Before we get into the book, did you get my email? Because
I did.
And you?
Thank you very much.
You just became...
I just became a member of the Academy, which is very exciting. The Academy of Arts and Sciences is voting members. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. I mean, my dad has been a member for 3 decades, and I always grew up going to see films at the Academy. And always truly just thought that the Academy was for men like my dad. And so I was like always a guest that would go, and it was, so to be invited was kind of a really important moment for me in my life.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations.
You know, Amber, you're really at the forefront of the Me Too movement. You're such a groundbreaker. There are some people right now, though, that are saying it's becoming a little bit of a witch hunt. What do you say to those critics?
I mean, it's so interesting to me when we talk about backlashes and witch hunts and all of this sort of language. By the way, we're in like the 36th week after that Weinstein story came out. That's how recent it was. But we don't ever say those things about, you know, when we're harming other types of bodies, like putting children in cages, or when we're talking about climate change. We never talk about going too far with those conversations. Yet whenever it comes back and centers around the bodies of women, it is always like, wait a minute, we need to hang on a minute, we should reframe it, we should rethink about it. And I'm just like not here for it. I'm not listening to it.
Well, the criticism is more about any woman. This is what I hear. A woman can just make an accusation, and that's enough to ruin someone's career.
Well, people talk about this idea a lot of, and it's really interesting to me because a lot of liberal men who ironically really hate this idea of identity politics and that being put on people, yet when it comes to women and when women are telling their stories, they're like, oh, that's identity politics. That doesn't count. So I'm actually kind of at odds with a lot of my own community right now about that talk. But we talk about, you know, when we talk about this idea of innocent until proven guilty, I take real issue with that when it comes to systemic sexual violence, because how do you prove coercion? Literally, does anyone here have an answer to that? How do you prove that someone put their hand on your leg, hand up your skirt, did something to you? How do you prove those things? You can't. So the conversation must be broadened and changed in order to include it.
Well, it's hard to prove that unless you have a witness or a videotape.
That's right. I mean, so
it has to be someone's word.
Or DNA you can have.
Yeah,
there's someone testifying.
I think you have to keep pushing through it, and you have to be patient and persistent with this movement and not waver when language like that comes up.
Right. So I understand that you have a 1-year-old named Marlo who has weaponized you in this movement. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. Marlo is a little over 1 now, and, you know, I wrote this book while I was pregnant with her, which is insane when you hear what it is about. But I think that for me, there was this act of not only being pregnant during 2016 in an election year with this particular candidate who became our president, but I was also pregnant with a girl, and so there was female growing inside of me in that way, and I couldn't help but look at the ways in which he not only treated, you know, the woman that he was running against, but also all of the other women around him, women who had accused him, women who had come forward and told stories, even women, his own daughter. It really, really graphically internally changed me.
Well, your new novel, Any Man, my goodness. I mean, Whoopi's been raving about it. I've read it. It's a different type of story because it's a story about several men who are sexually assaulted by a female serial rapist.
Yeah.
You often don't hear about that, about women assaulting men.
Has it ever happened?
This is fiction, but it does happen.
It does happen.
Certainly, by a much smaller percentage, of course. But why did you choose to write the story and flipping it in that way?
So it's interesting. I haven't always thought about it as flipping as much as just broadening the conversation of sexual assaults. And I think if we're going to talk about inclusion and we're going to have conversations about how do we change society systemically, how do we really, really affect this so that it's no longer in the workplace for anybody across industries, not just necessarily in my business, in the entertainment business or one particular business, but how do we do that? And I think that the most important first thing we have to do is make space for some of the most difficult conversations that we've ever had, and that includes who exactly does sexual assaults happen to? Who are the victims of it? And we have to remember that it knows no gender, it knows no class, it knows no socioeconomical structure, it knows no race, age, none of it. And this book shows that. And for me, it was about resensitizing us as a culture and saying, you know, I want women to not just have to say, let me tell you my story, let me show you what it's like. I want women to be able to say, let me help you feel what it's like. You want to feel how we feel? This is how we feel. And then for men to read it and kind of, which has been the experience, by the way, of the couple men that I've given it to, one of which came out and told me he was sexually assaulted by a woman, a friend who I've known for over a decade. But for them to say, like, is it really this bad? And you can go, yeah. It's really like this.
Well, yesterday, Terry Crews was testifying about, you know, just being assaulted by somebody, you don't want their hands on your body. You just don't want someone to do that. And trying to get people to understand that it's like, you have to get rid of this idea of what a man is.
Yes.
Because when you think of a man being this way, it means you can't be affected by this. You can't be hurt. You can't feel violated. And I thought he was incredibly effective yesterday.
And I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been for him to come out in a world that really predominantly puts masculinity above all other centered emotions.
Yeah, he called it toxic masculinity.
That's right.
He even told me that he's, because we honored him at Safe Horizons as a champion for domestic violence and sexual assault. He said he's lost jobs because of it.
I believe that. I believe it.
He said that.
We also say that the book is an indictment of journalism and social media. Tell us about that.
So the book, it is a little bit of an indictment. It really, I think a lot of it looks at, while it does follow these 6 men who are the survivors and this woman named Maud, who is a sort of amorphous creature. She's very scary. She's impossible to find. The only serological evidence that they find is a 6-foot-long white hair. Super creepy. I was like, what's the creepiest thing I can think of? So, you know, outside of that, it looks at the culture in rape culture and what exactly is that. And so much of that, I think, is this breeding ground for bullying on social media and how sometimes we think we're helping, you know, because we're retweeting a hashtag, because like that's all we can afford to do today. And so,
You know, you have a seat here always. Come back. Thanks to Amber Tamblyn. The new book, Any Man, is out now. And members of our audience, you're going home with a copy of this?